you said you can like make yourself look a year younger in 1 month by doing it.
Yeah, that was a scientific study. Yeah.
She created the Fountain of Youth. Now face yoga expert Danielle Collins is sharing the magic with us.
This is about how we're feeling in our mind, because we all know how we feel on our mind really radiates out through our face.
The power of putting ourselves first.
I think you have to do something for you. That alone is going to help with our emotional health and with our mental health.
And making wellness a way of life.
One thing I have realized over the years, and whether it comes to face yoga or exercise for the body or yoga for the body or healthy eating, if you do it for the way you feel, you'll want to do it every day. So simple, but so effective.
On an all-new Intentional Living with Courtney Meyers. Welcome to Intentional Living with Courtney Meyers, a podcast dedicated to those seeking a more fulfilled and purposeful life through thought-provoking conversation, spiritual exploration, and authentic connections. The intentional movement has begun, and if you found yourself here, you are a part of it. Intentional Living with Courtney Meyers starts now. Hi, Danielle. Welcome to Intentional Living with Courtney Meyers. I am so honored to have you on the show today.
Hello, Courtney. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm very excited.
I am too, because essentially you've created what I would say maybe is the Fountain of Youth through your face yoga method. I mean, you have created something that is so unique and so transformative in the space of, we spend so much of our life worrying about like our external appearance. And there's something to be said about that because it does dictate how we feel inside. And I know we're going to get into all that good stuff too, but let's start with what you've created. You've created the Fountain of Youth. How does this work? How does face yoga help us stay youthful and glowing and give us that self-care that we all need?
Yeah, well, face yoga, or the Danielle Collins face yoga method, which is what I've been teaching now for around 18 years, has 5 main areas to it. So it has the facial exercise. So this is about strengthening and toning the muscles in our face. So similar to what we would do for the body, we're just applying similar principles to the 57 muscles in the face. And as we strengthen and tone a muscle, the skin attach is tightened and tautened and lifted. So it helps our skin to look smoother, reduce lines and wrinkles. And then we also have the facial massage aspect, so the second aspect. And lots of people are familiar with facial massage. Maybe if you've had a body massage, they've done some of your face as well, or if you've been for a facial. The wonderful thing about face massage as part of face yoga is we can do it every day in our own bathroom, in our own bedroom, wherever we want to do it really easily, completely for free with our own skincare products. And it has so many benefits. It boosts the blood circulation, it helps with lymphatic drainage, and all of these things help our skin to look glowing, healthier, and detox our skin as well. And then we have the third aspect, which is the acupressure. So my method is very much a fusion of more scientific methods based as well around more traditional methods. So things like traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurveda, yoga, and the acupressure is very much rooted in those traditional Eastern techniques. So what we do with the acupressure is we apply pressure to specific places on the face, and this has lots of benefits for us aesthetically, but also really helps our health and wellness as well. Then we have the fourth aspect, which is the relaxation. So I talked about how some muscles need to be strengthened and lifted and toned. Well, there's other muscles in our face which we tend to overuse, but overuse in a way which can be quite stressful, and it creates these expression lines. So by learning to relax certain muscles in the face, we can really smooth lines and wrinkles, but we can also release a lot of stress that we're holding in our face, which of course then helps to relieve stress in our mind and in our body as well. And the fifth and final aspect, which is probably my favorite, is the well-being. So my method is very much a holistic method. So yes, it's great to exercise our face. Yes, it's great to do the massage, but actually I really encourage just a healthy lifestyle overall. This is about how we're feeling in our mind, because we all know how we feel on our mind really radiates out through our face. Yeah. This is about things like reducing stress, sleeping well, hydrating enough, eating well, getting enough exercise, all those things that we know about. But actually all of those together really help to form a healthy lifestyle, but really help our skin as well, and really complement those other aspects of face yoga.
Well, isn't that interesting that what you're talking about is like, yes, we are like like smoothing the lines on our face and strengthening these muscles. I mean, just as you're talking, I'm like, I haven't had Botox in years. I'm thinking, okay, can I do this? Can I reduce these wrinkles up here on my forehead? They drive me insane. It's like, I have this thing.
Gorgeous. Honestly, you look gorgeous. And I've never had Botox. So actually, I've never gone down that route at all. So you don't need to go back to the Botox.
But I love it. I mean, we were definitely, I think we're about the same age even. And it's like, your skin looks so perfect. And I'm sitting here going, okay, I do this. I raise my, like you said, those stress lines. I raise my forehead and I create these lines, and they literally drive me crazy. I have this saying, should I get Botox or bangs? Like, I feel like I should get a t-shirt that says it. But
Botox or bangs. Love it.
Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, it's like, you're saying we don't even have to go there, but there's so much more to what you're doing than just like that physical aspect. I mean, I know that our skin shows so much of what's going on in the inside. It's like one of those very first places that we'll start to see those signs of stress, or those signs of like, dehydration, or if we're not sleeping well or wellness. I mean, last night I was up at 3 a.m. I could not sleep. So I'm sure I'm like, everything you're saying, it was just one of those random nights. Yeah. I'm sure everything you're saying is like showing on my skin right now. It's like, how do we do this? And how does this benefit us? How does that stimulate those things to help us feel better?
Absolutely. Well, I love doing my face yoga in the evening. I mean, you can do it at any point in the day. I just do it in the evening because I have super busy morning. I have two little girls that are 7 and 11. So my mornings are getting them out to school and then coming back and then starting my day's work. So for me, it's evening time. I have a bath, I do my skincare, and then I'll do my face yoga. Quite often I'll do it sat on the sofa watching TV with my husband. I fit it into where I can. But when I do my face yoga, it really is my self-care moment. So yes, I do it because I want my skin to look healthy and glowing and reduce lines and wrinkles. But I do it mostly for how I feel. And one thing I have realized over the years, and whether it comes to face yoga or exercise for the body or yoga for the body or healthy eating, if you do it for the way you feel, you'll want to do it every day. If you only do it for the way you look, it'll go up and down because it'll be so dependent on our mood and our time. But actually, if we do it from a place of self-love and self-care and self-gratitude, and because we want to feel good, then we'll always do it. Today I had a super busy day and I knew that I really didn't have time to go out and do what I call my wellness walk. So it's one of what I call my non-negotiables every day. So just to get out and walk in fresh air and nature every day. But I said to myself, Danielle, you will feel so much better for doing this. And I wasn't doing it because I was thinking, I need to burn calories or I need to look good by doing that walk. I did it simply to help me feel good. Now, the lovely side effect of face yoga is it's going to help you look good. But I promise you, by motivating yourself to feel good and doing it from that place, you'll keep it up every day.
I absolutely love that, tapping into that feel good energy, because so often, and especially, I don't know if it's a Western culture thing. I don't know if it's a woman thing. I don't know where it is. I don't know where this got lost in this idea that we need to like let go of how we feel and just do. I think maybe it's a patriarchal thing, but we, push ourselves to do things that don't necessarily feel good. And that doesn't get the results long-term, like you're saying, that we are looking for. Yeah, you might be. I remember right before my 10-year high school reunion, deciding, oh my goodness, I'm not going to go back to my reunion being that fat cheerleader. So I'm just, I like made myself get up and do double spin classes every day. 2 hours of spin followed by like an hour of weight training for like, that was unsustainable. We push ourselves in these things, and it was more for that external. It wasn't for that feel good. And I love how you're saying that when we come back to who we are within and how we're feeling, that's when we find something that works and sticks for us. And it changes the whole trajectory of everything.
It really does. Absolutely. It changes everything. And I think even on our hardest days, if we can choose a few non-negotiables on our good days, I say, if you pick your non-negotiables on a good day, you won't have to think about it on your bad days. So for me, it's face yoga, some form of yoga. So that might be a 1-minute yoga pose, or it might be a whole hour class, just depending on time and lots of other things, and a wellness walk every day. So those 3 things I've committed to myself, I'll do every day. And I'm so glad I've have committed to those things, because even on the days where I feel hormonal, where I haven't slept well, where I'm super busy, where I feel tired, I make sure I do those 3 things. And it becomes so much part of me and my habit now that it just happens. And then anything else I do for my health and my fitness and my beauty and self-care is a bonus. That's great. If I can also go to the gym, amazing. If I can also spend a bit longer and do a lovely face mask on my skin, amazing. But actually I have those 3 non-negotiables, and it makes a massive, massive difference to my day, and also for my mental health as well. That's so important, because when our mental health isn't where it should be, everything else is affected.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. I was wondering, it sounds like doing stuff like face yoga can actually benefit, because you're talking about doing acupressure points and things like that. It can actually benefit our mental state.
Absolutely. And, there's been lots of studies on breathing, and breathing is a huge part of face yoga. So when I say breathing, I mean deep, mindful, relaxed breathing, usually in and out through the nose, usually with a longer exhalation than in the inhalation. And there have literally been hundreds of studies about how this can positively impact our well-being, our health, and our mental health. So every time that anyone will do any face yoga with me, whether they're watching on YouTube, whether they're watching a social media video, whether they're using a book, whatever it is, I'm always talking about the importance of breathing. So that alone is going to help with our emotional health and with our mental health as well. And you're right in saying things like the acupressure points. So there are certain acupressure points which have been used for thousands of years in Chinese medicine, in yoga, for helping to reduce stress, for helping us to sleep better, to help to reduce headaches, to help us reduce tension, help sinuses, the list goes on and on. So actually physically doing face yoga poses is going to help our mental and our physical health as well.
I love that you're bringing in the breath work, though, because that is so huge. And I think it gets lost. And that is actually one of the biggest reasons why I've always shied away from yoga myself. I've tried the classes here and there, and I've always, struggled with the breathing. I would probably be better at it now because I have done some breathwork certification. So I have a little bit more idea of how to manage my breath. But, I don't think as a whole, as a society, that we know the power of just our breath.
I agree. I think it's one of the most, if not the most, important thing that we can focus on for our health. So, if you do nothing else for your health, your fitness, your face, your mental health, if you can focus throughout the day on breathing deeply, or just checking in with your breath and checking it's not that very shallow breath from the chest area, it's not too fast, because we often can get in that loop very, very quickly, and actually making sure that it's slower, it's abdominal breathing, and you're aware of your breath. It makes such a big difference, because that slow breathing instantly puts us into what I call a rest and digest response. So it allows our nervous system to calm down. It allows us to go into that parasympathetic nervous system response. So instantly we're having those physical changes that actually can be proven in the body to actually help us feel more relaxed. But as soon as we are going into that short, sharp chest breathing, and sometimes we're really aware of it. Funnily enough, I felt myself very aware of it today. I was doing some work and I was thinking, oh my goodness, you almost feel as though you're going to go into sort of like a panic attack, because the breath becomes very, very quick. And actually I said to myself, okay, take a few long, deep breaths, and instantly it settles everything down. It can do that very, very quickly as well. So never underestimate the power of breath, for sure.
Do you think we can retrain ourselves to breathe more? To breathe more in that abdominal breathing? I actually was speaking with a doctor about that on the show. How babies come in and they belly breathe. They're not breathing out of the chest, but as we get older, our breath seems to become shallower. Like we lose that connection to breathing through our belly. But that's where I think we are more aligned. We are more connected with our nervous system, and we stay more regulated when we can drop into that belly breath. But I feel like we have to retrain ourselves to do that.
We do. And I think you have to be very conscious of it throughout the day. I've been doing this deep abdominal breathing for about 20 years now. Obviously, like you say, the first 7 years of life, we do that breathing very naturally. But as we hit about the age of 7, then we tend to go into more of a shallow breath. And for me, it wasn't really until I was about sort of 21, 22 that I actually learned the importance of doing deep abdominal breathing. So even over those last 20 years, I would still say I have to consciously check in. It's not like I'm just naturally now retrained to always breathe really deeply and breathe really relaxed. I gave an example of just today. I needed to actually say, Danielle, okay, breathe slowly, breathe in a more relaxed way. So for me, it's still very conscious. I think for other people, it can become a more subconscious, unconscious breath. They can retrain themselves. But I think everyone is so different. And I think there's so many factors involved in that. I think lifestyle, I think what's going on in your life currently, I think, past traumas, I think lots of different things can make a huge difference to that. But one thing I can say is there is a choice how we breathe. And if you can consciously make that choice a few times throughout your day, you're going to have a really, really positive impact on your mental and your physical health.
I wonder why we transition as a child from that belly breath to that upper breath. Do you have any idea?
I think it's life. I really do. I think it's the stress of life for sure. I think, we get into the school system. I think we have more pressures put on us. I think we have to race around. I mean, I see even with my own children that, even in the morning, I'm like, come on, quickly, you've got to put your clothes on, quickly go and clean your teeth, jump in the car to school. And then even at school, it's like, finish that now. You've got 5 minutes to finish that. And instantly, I think it puts our body into that fight or flight response. And I think that then becomes a learned behavior very quickly. So unfortunately, I think it's just the society we live in. It'd be really interesting actually to go back to when we were cavemen and actually see whether it did start shifting when we were about 7 or 8, or whether that just naturally carried on. And the only time we go into that fight or flight response is when we were faced with a real danger. And of course, back then we would have had way more real dangers than what we actually do now. So actually, we would have a very good fight or flight response because we would have actually physically needed it to run away or to fight. But it would be interesting to know whether, until that danger then comes, whether we did actually breathe in this slow, relaxed way. And I don't know the answer to that.
I mean, it's so interesting to hear you think about this because my kids are a little bit younger than you. And I know, I mean, even just talking about this as we go into that more chest breath at 7, that's also when we say, when we're talking about spirituality, a lot of times we're losing touch with that inner self. We're losing touch with our intuition. It seems very connected. And then now we're in the society where we're actually manufacturing that fight or flight response. And like you're saying it, we're doing that to our kids. We're indoctrinating them. With that as children. Even you are extremely aware of what that does to your system. I am, even the best of us that are conscious of it, we're still creating that environment for our children. And how do we reverse course, so that they don't grow up to be anxious adults, so that they don't grow up with this dysregulated nervous system? There's so much of that. And can we stop it before our kids grow up into it?
It's so interesting you asked that, because I've been thinking, funnily enough, a lot over the last sort of 24 hours about that. And the reason being is I actually saw something yesterday on Instagram, and I think it was an article that someone wrote for Grazia magazine or some magazine like that. And actually the title of it said, as a female, I never grew up seeing a relaxed woman. And I thought, wow, that had a massive impact on me. And I thought, are my children growing up seeing a role model of a truly relaxed female? Me or any other females they're exposed to, whether it be their teachers, whether it be other members of my family, are they really seeing that example? So I've been thinking a lot about that. So I think in answer to your question, it starts with what children observe and what they see. So actually it starts with us, because we can't change how they feel, but we can change how we feel, and therefore what they're exposed to and what they observe. So that really hit me hard, actually. And I think the reason it really hit me hard reading that yesterday is I started to think, am I the relaxed female that I want my 2 girls, because I've got 2 girls, that I want them to grow up being? And the answer is not always. Sometimes yes, but lots of the time, probably no. It's not like I'm running around in a huge stress frenzy or I'm shouting all the time or anything like that. but am I busier than perhaps I would like to be, or that I would like them to be? Am I doing more than I would like to? Am I looking at the clock all the time, rushing myself, rushing them? Am I being as present with myself and them as I would like to be? Probably the answer is no. And actually, I'm doing my best, like we all are as mums. Absolutely. Yeah. But how can I expect them to grow up as really relaxed, mindful females if I'm not relaxed and mindful as a female? So definitely that's something I'm looking to work on, and I think the first step to any change is awareness. So I think actually just starting to have that awareness that actually I'm not always relaxed as I would like to be is the first step to making those changes. And if I can catch myself when I am rushing too much, and when I am breathing too quickly, and when I am rushing them too much, when I actually catch myself, maybe I can make a slight little shift or a slight little change. Because let's face it, they still need to go to school. They still need to be out the door at 7:45 in the morning. And I still need to work and everything else. But I think having a bit of awareness and making small changes for myself is the first step to helping them.
1,000%. We have to model that behavior. And I know it's been talked about a lot with like things like beauty and our appearance and like our self-acceptance, being really aware and conscious, especially with our daughters. I have a daughter and a son, and things are very different of how I find myself treating them because of just the natural aspect of like how you treat a daughter versus how you treat a son. This morning I was, curling my hair, and my daughter comes in, I want the twisties and I want the lips and I want the, she wants to do it all. And, then I let her play because it's fun. She's 4. She's not going anywhere today. And I let her doll herself up, and then she looks at me and goes, am I beautiful, mommy? And it's just like, yes, you're beautiful. But you don't need this to be beautiful. And so like this constant, like we have to be aware of like what we're showing. And I think that also extends to this, like the energy that we're bringing into our home, because it's hard. It's hard to get our kids out the door on time. It's hard. It's hard not to be like, let's go. Yeah. But then it's like, how much more pressure do we need to put on ourselves? But you're so right. Like, they're going to model our behavior. We can't tell them, oh, you need to be relaxed. You need to be present. You need to breathe. Yeah. Like they're going to do what we're doing. And you're running a business. You have a lot going on. You have 2 young kids. Like, I don't even know how you create those non-negotiables that you were talking about in your life.
I think I have to, because I think you have to do something for you. And I think it is particularly hard when you're a parent, because, and particularly a mom, you always have what I call that mom guilt with everything, even during the day when they're not even here. And I've decided to go out for a 30-minute walk rather than put another load of laundry on, because actually they need some kit for their hockey tomorrow. And, the list goes on. And actually, but I promise myself that I'll do that. And what I hope is when they are then adults, they'll have their non-negotiables. And whatever happens in their life, whether they have children, whether they have a partner, whatever it is, they say, my mum always had those 3 non-negotiables. I saw her go out for a walk every day. Sometimes I joined her. Sometimes I wanted to stay at home with dad. I didn't want to come. Sometimes she did it while I was at school. I saw her do a little bit of yoga each day. I remember that, and maybe that's what I should do. And that's what I want them to see. They know that I put so much into them, and my priority absolutely is them. Someone said to me that your priority should be your own health and wellness first, and then your children. And I'm not good at that at all. It's my children are my top priority, and then it's my own health and wellness. But I try and remember that, that is still a priority. It's still got to be done. Despite them being my top priority, I've still got to look after my own health and wellness for all those reasons we've just talked about. But really, if we don't have our health, we can't parent the way we want to. We can't have a job and earn a living and provide for them. We can't be the role model we want to be for them. We can't show up in the way that we want to be. So I can see why people do really say that actually your health should be number 1 priority above everything. Because unless you've got that, really you've got nothing.
Yeah, it's so true. But when your kids are really young, it's really hard to find that time.
So
I don't have any distance from my children. So it's it's
so hard.
It's so hard. And it is so important. Our health, if we don't have our health, we don't have anything. I mean, that's what That's what set you on this journey. You had a diagnosis that you were told was incurable, yet you were like, no, I'm going to fix this. Like, how did that transpire? And how did you find these methods? Because I think there's so much power that we all have within us to heal ourselves, to cure ourselves, to create that life we want, to even create that space that I am like struggling to find myself with my kids. Like we're talking about, we have that power. But it's like, how do we embrace it? And how do we heal ourselves so that we can show up in the best way possible?
Yeah. Well, I think, going back to those 3 non-negotiables, if you can pick 3 things you do each day, even if each of those things only take you 2 minutes, I know that everyone, even if you've got newborn babies, can fit that in for sure. 2 minutes of breathing every day, maybe 2 minutes of stretching every day, and maybe 2 minutes of massaging in your skincare. Like they could be your non-negotiables, and we can all do that. So starting with that for sure. But going back to my journey. So I had just graduated from university. I was 21. So we're going back 20 years ago now. And I definitely was someone who was very stressed, very much perfectionist, very much overdid it in every way. I was determined to get the absolute top mark in university for my degree, which I did. I would do lots of sports. I was very much what people call an all-rounder, but actually too much pushing myself in every aspect. And then I got a virus, and then I was diagnosed with something called ME. So basically what it felt like was severe pain through my body, severe fatigue that I couldn't get out of bed, severe brain fog, and lots of other symptoms as well. And I went from being raring to go and be a teacher in schools. That's what I was going to do. I was actually going to teach children for a living. So I knew I always wanted to teach and help and share, but that was the way that I thought I was going to do it, to then being completely bedridden. And the doctor said to me, this is the diagnosis. However, you might get over this in a few weeks, or it might be there for decades. We don't know. Wow. And I definitely wasn't into anything holistic, natural health, definitely wasn't into yoga, anything like that. But I really thought to myself, I've got to heal myself. And I remember someone saying to me, why don't you try a bit of yoga? Now, of course, I was too ill to go to a yoga class. So I got a yoga video, and I would start with breathing and a little bit of gentle stretching and movement in bed. And really that started my journey. So I would then integrate things like positive affirmations and visualizations, lots of breath work. I started to change the way that I ate, really started to look at my nutrition. Huge changes in my mindset was really key. And then I started to reach out to other professionals. I saw a life coach and an acupuncturist, and started to have massage and acupressure, and started to use all of these modalities to really heal myself. And I did heal myself. Within a year, I healed myself. Within 18 months, I was then helping other people in a similar way. So I did my first training then in relaxation therapy, and also as a yoga teacher. Did lots of other trainings then, and over the years I've done many, many different holistic modality trainings. And one of the first things I started teaching was relaxation classes, meditation classes, and yoga classes. And my clients were loving this. They were loving it for their body, they were loving it for their mind. But it's so interesting because, going back 18 years ago, we didn't have options that we have for the face now. So whether you go down a more invasive route, we talked about things like Botox at the beginning, or you go down a more natural route, we didn't have those options. We didn't have social media. We barely had the internet then, really. So we didn't have these options in terms of what we do for our skin. And lots of people, particularly that were into yoga and looking after themselves and natural health, wanted something for their skin. And I remember when I trained as a yoga teacher as well, thinking, it's really crazy. We learn everything from the neck downwards, but nothing about the head and the neck area and toning those muscles and stretching and relaxing those muscles. And I also did a training in face massage. I was super interested in that. But I didn't want it to be just once every 6 weeks, someone come and they'd have a treatment. I wanted people to be able to do it every single day. So this really started my journey to putting together the Danielle Collins Face Yoga method, drawing on all of my trainings, drawing on lots of different research, as I mentioned earlier, scientific studies and more traditional techniques, and honing a lot of these techniques with my clients as well. So I used to teach little bits of face yoga at the end of yoga classes, do before and after pictures with them. I used to make them little CDs at the time it was, and they would listen to these and do their face yoga techniques and give me feedback. And that was so great because that really helped me put my method together. And my journey's been wonderful since then. I've been lucky to teach it to millions of people around the world, teach in many, many different countries. I've got about 2,000 teachers of Danielle Collins Face Yoga method now in over 70 countries, and written 2 best-selling books and lots of other things. So, but the main thing is, and tying that all back to the healing, is that's what I'm really passionate about, helping people to really feel good and to use really simple but really effective techniques to help them with their health and their wellness and their healing, because that's really how my journey started. And really, that's still what I do every day. I just use simple little techniques throughout my day to help me with my wellness. So that's really where my passion lies.
But isn't that interesting? I actually just read this fact. I think it was yesterday or today, about how like 85% of people with autoimmune diseases or diseases that don't have a cure are women. And that, women, we're pushing ourselves, what we're doing to our nervous system, like what you said, like you got to a state where you were so bedridden and ill, and it took this relaxation. It took this slow down. It took this awareness to really bring yourself to that healing place. And of course, then it turned you on to your purpose, like most things do in our life that are a big challenge, lead us to our passion and our purpose and what we're supposed to do. So, I mean, I do believe everything happens for us, but I do find that interesting that it's like coming back to that whole motherhood, women, like constant stress, relaxed women, like we are the ones that are really, I think it was Gabor Mate that said that like 85% of autoimmune diseases are in women.
Wow, that does not surprise me. Absolutely. And I think it is changing that culture, and it ties into everything that we said. If we can start to prioritize ourselves a little bit more, even you and I, who know so much about health and wellness, and we've done trainings in it, even you and I are admitting that actually we're not putting our own health and wellness as a top priority by any means. And actually, there are millions and millions of women that don't have the knowledge and the training that we have. So you can imagine how low their own health and well-being is for them. So I think all we can do, again, is we can't change the culture as a whole. We can't change the next generation. We can just change ourselves. So it's really just starting with ourselves and starting to say, how can I look after my health and well-being better? How can then that inspire other people to do the same thing? How can this then inspire our children, particularly our daughters, to grow up knowing that self-care is a really, really important priority?
Yeah, it's the first thing to go at all times. And we have to come back to that awareness that you're talking about. But then the next step from that awareness is action. And just like you're saying, like I am so aware of all these things. I've talked to so many experts on the show. I've gone through, just like you, I've done Reiki trainings, I've done breathwork trainings, things like that. It's like all this knowledge, but what do we do with it? And I think there is a disconnect from us because there's such a wealth of knowledge now out there. Like you said, now we have the internet, we have the, streaming devices, we have the satellite, like we can get all of this information in a second, but what are we doing with it? And I feel there is a disconnect because we are a society of a lot of knowledgeable people, but we are also a society of a lot of people of inaction.
Yeah. Absolutely. I completely agree. And it really is starting to make it a priority throughout your day. Something which I try and remind myself is the emails will always get done at some point. The laundry will always get done at some point. Cooking the dinner will always get done. These things I know I'll always do, whether it means staying up a bit later, whether it means leaving it till tomorrow or sending an email a bit late. I'll always do those things. But what I won't always do is the self-care. So I try and do that first. And given the example of the walks there, I knew I had some laundry to put on. It was a tiny break between a really busy day of meetings, but I said, I'm going to go out and do the walk. because I knew that that wouldn't happen, whatever. I know I'm going to put the laundry on later. That will happen, whatever. But it's actually saying you have to make that point. You almost have to make yourself every single day do your self-care, do a little bit of something for your fitness, do a little bit of something for your mental health as well. Like, you have to prioritize it and know all those other things that bog us down every day will get done. That's the only thing I can say about it. Just have to almost have that talk with yourself every day. I know I have to. Like I said, some people might be really, really naturally good at it and just actually wake up in the morning and go straight into a full self-care routine and a lovely morning routine and everything. And other people will probably be more like us and have to say, we're going to have to prioritize this. We're going to have to make ourselves do this. We're going to have to take that action. But I promise you'll never regret it. Like, I won't go to bed tonight thinking, oh, I wish I didn't go out and do that walk in nature. I wish I just spent longer doing the housework today. I'll never do that. But I would have gone to bed going, why didn't I go out and have that walk today? Because I won't sleep as well. If I hadn't gone back do that walk, my stress levels would be higher. I wouldn't be as great parents to my girls when they come back from school. You know, it has a positive impact on everything. And we're never going to look back when we're, in our 90s on our deathbed and say, oh, I wish we'd done more work. And I wish that I'd done more housework. You're going to say, actually, I wish that I'd done more things that are fun. I wish I'd done more things that give me joy. I wish I'd done more things that give me energy. I wish I spent more time with the people I love. Hopefully we won't say any of that because we won't regret anything. But that's what's going to be a priority for us. And I think that's what we've got to remember.
So how do you suggest starting to create those habits? Because as much as we can be aware and know that we need to do that, creating these new habits and creating these changes in our life is hard. And I've talked to Britt Frank, who wrote The Science of Stuck, and the psychological aspect of it. It's like sometimes it's hard to like push ourselves to those positive changes, no matter how much we know they're going to benefit us and benefit everyone around us. So like, how do you help bring people into that space?
Yeah, start small. That's all I can say. We often start by saying to ourselves, particularly in January, I see there's a lot in January.
Yes.
I'm going to go to the gym every day and I'm going to eat only salads every day for lunch. And people say this, and we all know by February, that's probably not going to work. So start small. Maybe instead of saying I'm going to go to the gym every day, maybe you say I'm going to do 5 squats every day. And do that anytime. You can do that whilst you're waiting for a kettle to boil. You can do that while, on the way to, doing a few emails. You can do it anytime. Maybe start really small like that. Decide what your goal is. So maybe it is to get fitter. Then have a really tiny baby step and start there. 5 squats every day. That's what I'm going to do. That's all I'm going to focus on. And hopefully what that will then do is that kickstarts you to then go, okay, so I've done my 5 squats every day. Maybe I can do 5 sit-ups a day. Maybe I can start working my core area. Okay, let's bring that in. But it doesn't feel like a massive mountain to climb. What it feels like is just that first step. And the same with face yoga. Don't put yourself under pressure to do a full 30-minute face yoga routine every day. If you can, great. And I've seen loads of people over the years that go, I'm going to commit every day to that, and they do. But most people, if they're committing to 30 minutes or 45 minutes every single day, just don't do it. So maybe say to yourself, okay, every evening when I apply my skincare, whether it's a moisturizer or a serum or whatever it is you apply, I'm going to spend 1 minute and I'm just going to massage that in a little bit deeper. Or I'm going to use a little facial tool that I've had sat in the cupboard for years. Most people have like a jade roller or a gua sha or something like that. And I'm just going to put that by my bathroom sink, and I'm going to do that every day when I apply my skincare. It's going to take 30 seconds. It's going to take 1 minute. And it's the first step. And that builds up. And then you never know, in a few weeks, you may say, you know what, I'm going to do 30 minutes of face yoga because I know how good that 1 minute made me feel. So just start with something really small. And it also gives you that sense of achievement. And when we feel a sense of achievement, that boosts our self-esteem, that boosts our confidence, that boosts our self-love, rather than if we do the other way around by saying, I'm going to go to the gym every single day and I'm going to do 30 minutes of face yoga every day. What usually happens then is you start to feel guilt because you haven't done it. Sometimes even self-loathing comes in. It can feel as extreme as that. We start beating ourselves up over it. We started telling ourselves we're a failure. We start telling ourselves we're too busy, we're too tired, we're unmotivated, and all these stories start to happen in our head, rather than going, do one thing, takes 1 minute every day. I'm going to do this. Sense of achievement. You go to bed thinking, I did my 1 minute face massage today. Oh my gosh, well done me. That was easy. That was simple. That was achievable. But it was still a step, and it was still something that I wasn't doing a week ago. So actually, I've made a real step forward in my life.
Well, that's so funny that you're thinking, because part of me is like, okay, 5 squats, that's not really going to do anything. But on the other, it is. Yeah. But then on the other extreme, like, okay, I commit to doing this an hour a day, every day, and then you don't do it. And then that guilt and that shame that you just beat yourself up. It's so counterintuitive. So you're so much better off doing that little step. And even when I was reading about face yoga itself, it's like, you said you can like make yourself look a year younger in 1 month by doing it.
That was a scientific study.
A scientific study, 3 years younger. What was it? 3 years younger, and after 60 days months. Or something?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, amazing. These are just small things, and like what we can do, the results we can see. And I think building that bank of proof, whatever that bank of proof is in, even if it's that jade roller, do those really work?
Oh, I mean, they're lovely for boosting the blood circulation. So studies have shown that they can really help to increase the blood circulation. I think it's something like by 400%. So it's going to help your skin to look glowing. It's also going to relax a lot of tension in your face, which is really, really good. It's going to help a little bit with your lymphatic drainage as well. So it's going to be really good to reduce a little bit of puffiness in the skin. So the answer is yes. If you can combine it with face yoga, even better. But yes, do it every day. And what we often do, we'll do the jade roller once. We'll say, oh, we don't look any different. Let's not bother. And it goes back in the drawer. But it's about doing a little bit every day. And I've never been about extremes or about doing, huge long workouts or anything really sort of major. I just think these little things, the things we underestimate, 5 squats every day, 1 minute of your jade roller, 2 minutes of breathing, but keeping that up every day for years and years and decades makes such a difference. It's way more sustainable. But also, many studies have shown, and I found, I don't know if you watched the Netflix program about the blue zones, which I found really interesting. I
loved that. Yes.
So
fascinating.
Good. And actually what that showed is the people that are living till they're 100 and they're living very healthy, happy lives, none of them are doing anything extreme. None of them are in the gym at 5 a.m. every morning, lifting huge weights. None of them are doing crazy diets. What they're doing is little things every day, but it's sustainable. It's usually natural. And what it's really showing is if you do a little bit of gentle movement every day, and then we're usually just walking, or they're working in the fields, or they're, just doing things with their family. They're not doing anything extreme, but they're keeping up every day. And the same with their food. They're eating from nature. They're eating regular meals. They're not doing fasting or all these things that we're told that works really well for us. They're just eating regular healthy meals through the day, and they're spending lots of time with the people they love, and they're living till 100. So if we can learn from those people, those very simple habits, and many of these people don't have much money. They don't live a very wealthy life in terms of what we often perceive a wealthy life, but they live a very healthy life. And we forget that actually that's what matters. It's often those simple pleasures in life, spending time with the people we love, moving our bodies every day. And none of them are sat at a desk every day, in front of a laptop for 10 hours every day. They're usually moving in some way. And they are eating these really fresh foods. So simple, but so effective.
Oh, my husband and I dove into that documentary during COVID, because that's when we really got into it. And then we started doing like the plant paradox, and we wanted to start with the plant paradox and transition into like blue zone living. And I think there's either 7 or 9 principles to it, but it is like fascinating. I mean, one of the best stories from the blue zone is like that little old man in Italy. He's just like every day his walk is walking to the bar for a glass of wine, a social hour with his friends, and walk home. But like he's 100, like amazing. And then you'll see
Amazing.
people that are in their 60s that can't even get out of their chair. Like, you
Yes.
don't have to live that way. And
No.
I think there's so much to be said. And I love the Blue Zone. I am so fascinated by those. And even
Same.
just during that time when we got into it, and I've told the story in the podcast before, I ended up breaking my foot during that time, right when we were doing like plant paradox and moving into the Blue Zone stuff. And it was on the verge of like needing surgery. It was pretty bad, but the doctor was like, we're going to put in a boot and see what happens. And when I went back after 6 weeks to see if we really needed to go in and do the surgery or not, she looked at me and she goes, I've never seen anything heal that well so fast. And I credit it 1,000% to the Blue Zone and plant paradox, eating that healthy, eating that natural, eating what's in our environment, eating what's seasonal. Now I've slipped back into old ways like we tend to do, but like it is a goal of mine to get back there because there's so much to be said. And it, like you said, it's not about just big movements. It's not about all this stuff. It's like, it's this health and wealth and this whole well-rounded well-being. It's so fascinating.
It's so fascinating, and it's really making me think now in my 40s, what can I do to be healthy in my 60s and 70s? Because what I see, particularly, you know, my parents' generation, not actually my parents, but many friends' parents or friends of my parents, I'm seeing now that they're in their 60s or 70s. They've worked super hard all their life. Maybe they've had quite high stress all their life, and suddenly they're hitting 70 and they're not able to travel because their health is too bad. They're not able to perhaps walk because their health is really struggling. You know, some of them sadly are passing away, and actually they were waiting for that retirement to live their life. Whereas actually, what I want to try and remind myself to do is two things. One, live my life now, because we never know what's around the corner. Not just wait for that time when my children are grown up and I've got all the time in the world and I retire from my work. I don't want to wait for that. But second of all, think, what healthy habit can I do today that's going to be good for 80-year-old Danielle? And that's why I do things like I make sure I go for my walk every day. I make sure I do my yoga every day. I make sure I do my face yoga every day, because it's not just about today. It's about giving me a really long, happy, healthy life that I can then play with my grandchildren, hopefully my great grandchildren, and hopefully, you know, live till I'm 100. That's what I want. But I know it starts today. It's not about what I do when I'm 99. It's about what I do as a 41-year-old.
Oh my goodness, so true. You're just so inspiring me right now, just thinking about it. Because even thinking about like other people's parents that I know, you know, we're the same age, the generation above us. Thinking about it, it's like I hear so many of them. The words come out of their mouth. Getting old is horrible. You don't want to get old. Getting old sucks. And like we should embrace that privilege to grow old. We should welcome it. We should enjoy it, as opposed to being like, this is horrible. You don't want to get old. I don't want to get old. Like there's so much talk about that. And that goes back to like our mind, and we're creating our reality. Like, I don't want to feel that way. I had my kids, my first daughter at 37. I had my son at 39. You know, I want to be active. I want to be healthy. I want to be there so I can see them, you know, and their grandchildren. Now, I have great genes. Most people in my family have, or at least from my mother's side, have lived into their hundreds. So it's crazy to me. But that's, you know,
great. What did they do? I'm super interested to know. Why do you think that is? Did they live in a certain way? Can you see a pattern?
No, I cannot. Like, I wish I could. Like, that's what I'm thinking. It's like, you know, my great grandparents started passing away when I was in junior high. So I truly knew them. And I literally just lost my very first grandfather this year. All my other grandparents are still alive. Now, my grandfather, who I lost this year, was very active. He was a person that just couldn't sit still, like always had a purpose, always had something going on. So, but thinking about it, you know, my Grammy, who lived till past 100, I remember her waltzing into her 100th birthday party just on her own, no walk or anything. Like, and everyone's giving her money for whatever reason. This is a big Italian family giving her money. And she's just like, this is amazing. I want to be 100 every day. And then she went down afterwards. But, you know, I don't know what it is. I'm wondering, you know, I have a lot of Italian genes and that Mediterranean family.
Yeah. I was going to say, I wonder whether there's a Mediterranean diet, but also I wonder whether it goes back to what we were saying about the blue zones. They never do anything extreme. So I wonder
Yeah.
whether they're, were they people, for example, that were doing HIIT classes 2 hours a day, and were they,
No.
going and getting McDonald's and fast food? Actually, if it's like, and I'm the same, I've got quite a few grandparents who I have had as well, grandparents that live well into their 90s. And actually the pattern that I see with them was there was never any extremes. They would cook food at home. Yes, they'd go out for meals, but it'd be for birthdays or whatever. They'd not be getting takeaways or running to fast food restaurants. They're cooking every day at home, quite simple food, meat and potatoes and vegetables, nothing crazy. They'd go for little walks, but it wasn't like they were going, 3 times a day to their Pilates class or anything like that.
Exactly.
It was quite a simple life. And actually, I wonder whether that is the key, just having a simple life.
I think it must be that simple, fulfilling, and I think you have to have a reason. I think you also have to but I think that's part of. Now I don't remember all the different aspects of what the blue zone breakdown was, but I think that was part of it, having a purpose or faith, or at least something bigger than you. Faith.
It was, yes, exactly that. It was a faith or personal purpose. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Which that's another discussion. I mean, we can learn so much from talking to older people in our family.
Yes.
But that is another thing that has been very interesting to me. My husband had a conversation with one of his friends' grandmas who he was extremely close to. And this was probably at least 15 years ago. And she said that there's a breakdown. And now they're very religious. And I don't think you have to be religious to have this. You could be spiritual. You could have you could believe in whatever you want. But this family was very religious. And she said there was a breakdown of faith in the family, which I have tended to see. There's a breakdown of something bigger than us in the world that has become a commonality in the family. And that doesn't have to be God. It doesn't have to be you can name it whatever you want, but there is something to that, having a bigger purpose, knowing that there's something greater than us out there. I've seen that have an effect, a negative effect on us too.
That's really interesting. And in that Blue Zone program as well, they were saying it's often the habits that come with certain faiths as well. So even having a Sunday as a complete rest day, they were showing how important that is. Whereas they were showing that in other communities where perhaps they don't have that sort of faith, they're not having that rest period over a Sunday. And another thing they showed was that community getting together. So again, often a Sunday, a church, or maybe there were things like Bible meetings, weren't there, throughout the week, and things where communities would get together so you didn't feel isolated, because that was a big theme through the Blue Zone. When somebody feels very isolated, often they age much quicker than if they're around friends and peers, but also people younger than them as well. So they really found that. But in communities where they didn't have a faith, they often had a deep purpose. For example, they would still work until they were 100. So they'd be farming in the fields. So they have a reason to get up at 7 o'clock every morning and go and work every day and be around other people and have conversation. So it wasn't often what we see nowadays, which is everyone living very isolated in their own homes, often finishing all forms of work by 60 or 65, and instantly they're losing their purpose and their community. And if they didn't have a faith in the first place anyway, perhaps that isn't there as well. So it's very intriguing and a lot for us to think about. And I think we're really lucky to be having this conversation at 41, because actually we've now still got time to make these changes. And going back to what we said about inspiring our children, if we can make some of these changes now, let's hope that we inspire them to then live till they're 100 or longer.
I mean, this is inspiring me to jump back into that Blue Zone already, because even thinking about it, like you're talking about that community and having that, the isolation. I just talked to Simone Hang the other day, who wrote the book, Let's Talk About Loneliness. And she's on a mission to help bring awareness to that. Like the UN, I think, has just said that loneliness and isolation is one of the biggest epidemics of the future and what's going on right now. And I think she was saying Gen Z, I believe it is, they don't feel like they need to have real friends, because they can get everything they need from that social media. That loss of that social isolation is really this, almost like a silent, depressor or killer, essentially. It's an epidemic. It's a major problem. And that is exactly what those Blue Zones were about. I mean, even like gathering as a family. I'm just thinking of the Italy one for some reason right now, of them like making their pasta together, and
Yes.
all the like. There's so
Great.
much community and togetherness, and
Yeah.
it's a different way of life.
It's such a different way of life, and I think that we can all, again, it's about starting small, but what can we learn and just make small
Yeah.
changes in our own life. And I know, like you said, it inspires you to make all those big changes, but maybe actually you'd keep it up for the rest of your life if you just started small, and maybe think, how can I have a little bit more of a community in my week next week? Or how can I just start to include a few more plant-based foods in my diet every day? And just making those little changes.
Oh my goodness. So beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Danielle. How do we follow along with you? How do we learn, get your books, start a face yoga practice, all the good stuff that you're teaching? Where can we find it?
Absolutely. Well, everything's on my website, which is faceyogaexpert.com. You can find me on Instagram, Face Yoga Expert. In fact, I'm Face Yoga Expert across all of the platforms. I am everywhere, including YouTube, where you can find thousands of my videos. My 2 books, Danielle Collins Face Yoga and the Face Yoga Journal, are in all good bookstores and also on Amazon as well. And yes, just reach out to me anytime, particularly through Instagram. I'd love to hear from you. And yeah, go check out my website. It's all on there.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. What a brilliant and beautiful conversation. I really appreciate getting to connect today.
Thank you, Courtney.
And that's it for today's Intentional Living with Courtney Meyers. Thank you so much for listening. And thank you, Danielle Collins, for joining me in such a great conversation all about our self-care, wellness, and living a full, well-rounded life. If you want to follow along with Danielle or learn more about face yoga, I'll put all the information in the show notes below. And as always, you can find Intentional Living with Courtney Meyers and Intentional Media on our website at CourtneyMyers.com. That's where you'll find our books, courses, and everything else we have going on. I can't wait to talk to you soon. Bye.